everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus beta tutorial from the 500 Worlds. Yes, we are back with Titus and the Wardens of Ultramar. The second Titus that we've painted here on the channel in not too short a space of time, but there we go. Here we have all 7 new miniatures, and they are an absolutely beautiful set of miniatures for the Ultramarines and General Space Marines at Imperium and beyond. And, well, a massive thank you goes out to Games Workshop, who sent me these guys early to build up and paint with all of you, and that is exactly what we are going to be doing today. So we're going to jump in and we're going to start doing this, but before we do that, we've got a teensy tiny little bit of admin to do because, well, everything's a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on Titus and the other two, Matoros and what's his name? It's Gadriel, Ancient Gadriel. We're going to work on these 3, then these 4. That seems to be the sensible way to do things. So we're going to pop these guys to one side, and we're going to pick up Titus, Matoros, and Gadriel. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and start painting. Now, they've all been primed in Grey Seer, and the colour we're going to be using first, as always for the Ultramarines, is a roughly 4 parts Asurmen Blue to 1 part Lamia Medium mix. And we're going to be applying this over the top of all of the blue armour. And I guess any blue details that might be around. So Gadriel's banner, for example, it's another one. But don't worry about any of the blue on any of the attendants. I'm not going to be worrying about them. Just going to deal with them a little bit later. So with that all done, we're now going to take a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Lamia Medium and Ultramarines Blue. We're going to apply this over the top. So with all of that blue, or both those blues applied to all 3 of our Space Marines, we do have a bit of cleanup that we're going to have to do in a little bit, but we're not going to do it just yet because the next colour is going to be some Black Legion. And we're going to be applying this over top of, well, all of the black details. Now, I would always recommend looking at the box art for this, but this is going to include things like Titus's hair, which is different to the Lieutenant Titus version. You get a little bit of brown in there. It's going to include over the top of the casing of their weapons, such as the chainsaw and the bolt gun, and it's going to include areas such as like the beard on Matoros, the inside of his shield, and over the top of all of the gaps and soft joints in their armour. But as always, have a good look at the box art and follow along, and this Black Legion should cover over any blue mistakes you may or may not have. I know I've certainly got a bunch of them. And also, if you do have a slightly patchy finish, it's not the end of the world, because I'll show you how to fix it a little bit later, as we always do with our Ultramarines. So with that Black Legion now all applied, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Grey Seer. I'm going to use this to now just correct any mistakes we've made with the blue, and indeed the black as well. So with all that Grey Seer applied, we're now going to take 2 colours, Skeleton Horde and Wyldwood, and we're going to apply this over top of Titus's fur. So we're just going to start with Skeleton Horde, and get this all over. Just like this. then, once that skeleton horde is on, like so, what we're then going to do is wash the brush and grab a little bit of Wyldwood. Not very much at all. And just around the sort of bottom, we're just going to apply this Wyldwood. Just like that sort of thing. Like that. And then we wash the brush and just hop back to some skeleton horde. And we use this to smooth out that transition. Between the two colours like that. Sticking with skeleton horde, what we're going to do is we're going to apply this over the top of all of the oath papers and parchment. Like that. And we're also going to apply this over top of the inside of Titus's cloak. So with that now done, we're going to take a roughly 4 parts Cygor Brown to 1 part Larmian medium mix. I'm going to apply this over top of all of the leather. We also applied that Cygor Brown over the top of Matoris's face. But what we're going to do now is move on to our next colour, which is going to be some Sigvald Burgundy. I'm going to apply this over top of all of the little purity seals. With that all done, we then take some Wyldwood and we're going to apply this over top of Gadriel's hair. And with that Wyldwood applied to Gadriel's hair, what we then do is take some Baal Red and we apply this over top of the outside of Titus's cloak. So with that all done, over the top of Titus's face, we're going to use some Guilliman Flesh. And next up we're going to take some Reikland Fleshshade. We're going to apply this over top of Gadriel's face. And with that all done, we then take some Dark Angel's Green. I'm going to apply this over top of the Laurel. And with that all done, we then take some Targor Raidshade and we apply this over top of the Veteran's Badge on Matoris. So it's a bit early for shading, but it'll all become clear in a minute. But what we're going to do next is we're going to take a roughly 2 parts Lamian medium to 1 part Flesh Tearer's red mix. I'm going to apply this over top of the outside of Titus's cloak. So with that all done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Retributor Armour. I'm going to use this to paint in all of the gold details. Now this is another one where I'd recommend having the box art open in front of you. But the reason we're doing this now is so that we can get under the rope without getting gold all over the rope. If we do get gold all over the rope, well, we can just rebase it. So with all of that Retributor Armour applied, we're now going to take some Flesh Tearer's red. I'm going to apply this over the top of the rope on Titus, and we're going to apply this over the top of Matorus's tilting plate. And so with that all done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors. And we're going to apply this over top of pretty much all of our remaining details. But this is going to exclude all the bits that are going to be white. This is things like Ultimars, that knee pad, and stuff like that. So with that all done, it's time to add some shades. And the first of these is going to be some Tyran Blue. And we're going to apply this over top of all of the white details. With that all done, we're then going to take some Reikland Fleshshade, and we're going to apply this over top of all the gold, over the top of all of the Cygor Brown, and we're also going to apply this over top of Titus's face. And so with that all done, we're then going to take some Nuln Oil, and we're going to apply this over the top of all the silver and any of the kind of hard black details. We don't need to do it over his hair, for example, but over the top of the chainsword, absolutely. So with that, Titus, Matorus and Gadriel are now at what I would call a Warhipster battle ready. However, we're of course not going to leave them there. No, we're going to take them to the next level. I'm going to do this by adding some layers and some highlights. Now, the first of these is going to be our corrective layer for our Ultramarines Blue, and it's going to be some Macragge Blue. And what we're going to do is going to thin it down with roughly 3 or 4 parts water to make it nice and runny. I'm going to use this as a sort of almost glaze layer over the top of all the blue. And this is going to include the flag as well, should you need it. Of course, if you don't need it at all, you don't need to do this step, but I'm just going to use this just to sort of punch up the colour, fix any scratchy, patchy or blotchy mistakes, and just kind of make everything nice and smooth. So with that Macragge Blue all applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Corax White. I'm going to use this to relayer all the white details So with all that Corax white applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Cygor Blue, and we're going to use this to highlight all of the blue. So with all of that Cygor Blue applied, we're then going to take some thinned down Fenrisian Grey. I'm going to use this to spot highlight all of the blue. So with all of that blue done, it's now time to move on to some other colours. And the first of these is going to be the black details. And what we're going to do is going to take some thin down Dawnstone to do exactly that. With all that Dawnstone applied, we then take some thinned down Administratum Grey. I'm going to use this to add just some little spot highlights to the sharpest points in all that black. So with those black details now all fully highlighted, what we're going to do is going to move on again, and we're going to take some thinned down Squig Orange and use this to highlight Titus's rope and Metaurus's little heraldic plate. With that Squig Orange all applied, we then take some thinned down Tuskor Fur. I'm going to use this to highlight the leather. And so with that all done, we now take some thinned down Pink Horror. I'm going to use this to highlight the Purity Seals. So with that all done, our next port of call is to take some thinned down Uriel Yellow. And we're going to use this to pick out the little star and the border of the banner. So with that Uriel Yellow applied to the banner, what we're then going to do is take some thinned down Evil Sun Scarlet. I'm going to use this to highlight Titus's cloak. With that Evil Sun Scarlet all applied, what we're then going to do is take some thinned down Fire Dragon Bright. I'm going to use this to pick out the sharpest bits in the red cloak. Back to the banner, and I realised that these two little trails at the bottom were actually also green, so applied some Dark Angels green over the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of the green using some thinned down Moot Green. So with that all done, we're now going to take some thinned down white scar. I'm going to use this to highlight all of our white details. With that all done, what we're then going to do is take a little bit of Carroburg Crimson. And we're going to apply this inside the sort of scarring around Gadriel and Titus's face. And with that done, we then take a teensy tiny little bit of Flayed One Flesh, and we use this to highlight both Gadriel and Titus's faces. And with that all done, we then take some thinned down Night Quester Flesh. Forgot what it was called for a minute there. And we're going to use this to highlight Matoris's face. With the skin all highlighted across all three, we then take a little bit of Black Legion and we apply this over top of the eyes and any service studs. And so with that all done, we then take the teensiest, tiniest little dot of Screaming Skull and we apply this in the corners of the eyeballs. Just like that sort of thing. However, we will also use some Screaming Skull to highlight the fur and the parchment. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Breaker. I'm going to use this to highlight all the silver. And so with all that silver now highlighted, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Liberator Gold. I'm going to use this to highlight all the gold. And so with all of that gold now highlighted, to finish off our Space Marines, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown. I'm going to use this to add a bunch of writing to all the parchment. So with our Space Marines now all finished, it's now time to work on the advisors, or the other Wardens of Ultramar. And it's these four, and they all have names that I can't remember. But we're going to jump in and we're going to start painting them. So we're going to kick things off with some Asurmen Blue. We're going to apply this over the small amount of blue details there are across the four. And, well, the main one here is this individual's clothes. as always, I would thoroughly recommend having the box art in front of you to see where all of this stuff is placed. With that Asurmen Blue applied over these two, what we're then going to do is take a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Ultramarines Blue and Lamia Medium and apply this over the top. So with that all done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Gryph-Charger Grey. And we're going to apply this over the top of this individual's sort of coat. And over the top of our Astropath, we're going to apply this over the top of all of his clothes and the inside of his cloak. So with that Gryph-Charger Grey all applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take another layer of Gryph-Charger Grey and we're going to apply it over the top of this coat and the inside of the cloak on our Astropath. We're still waiting for that kind of first layer of Gryph-Charger Grey to initially dry on this guy's robe. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some Black Legion and we're going to apply this over top of all of the black details across all of the models. Now there's a ton of these, as you'd expect. There's things like this staff. There's the occasional like holster and pouch, undersuit, and so on and so forth. However, the biggest area of Black Legion is going to be the coat of one of the ones whose name I can't remember, which I shall show you now. This guy. And I did notice that there was a little bit of Gryph-Charger Grey on here that we had missed, which is the sort of inside bits, the wraps on the boots and the cuffs of this coat. So our next thing to do is to take a roughly 2 parts Lamia Medium to 1 part Terradon Turquoise mix. We're going to apply this over the top of the robe. So with that done to his robe, what we're going to do is pop him to one side, and over the other 3's outside of their cloaks, we're going to take some Baal Red. I'm going to apply this over the top. Whilst we wait for all that to fully dry, what we're going to do is going to take a roughly 2 parts Cygor Brown to 1 part Lamia Medium mix. And we're going to apply this over top of both of the furs. Speaking of Cygor Brown, just on its own, no thinning down, what we're going to do is we're going to use this over the top of all of the remaining leather. Our next colour is going to be some Flesh Tearers Red, and we're going to apply this over top of any rope. With that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take a roughly 2 parts Lamia medium to 1 part Flesh Tearers Red mix, and we're going to apply this over top of our Astropath's gloves, and we're also going to use this to shade the Baal Red on the other cloaks. And then next up we're going to take some Sigvald Burgundy. We're going to apply this over top of all the little purity seals. That's Sigvald Burgundy all applied. We're then going to take some Agrax Earthshade. We're going to apply this over top of the boot covers on this individual, as well as the bedroll. So next up what we're going to do is we're going to take some Skeleton Horde, and we're going to apply this over top of the inside of all of our remaining cloaks. We're going to apply this over top of any parchment. We're going to apply this over top of this individual's hair. As well. And over the top of his tassels on his pauldrons. And then next up we're going to take some Guilliman Flesh. I'm going to apply this over top of all of their faces. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Briar Queen Chill. And we're going to apply this over the top of, well, this thing that kind of looks like the Death Star. And then with that done, we take some Dark Angel's Green and we apply this over top of the wreath or laurel. And so with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors. And we're going to apply this over top of all of our silver details, which is mostly things like weapons and mechanical bits on backpacks and things like that. But as always, I recommend having the box art open in front of you, so you can see where all this silver is placed. So with all that Iron Warriors applied, we're then going to take some thinned down Retributor Armour. And we're going to apply this over the top of all of our remaining details that aren't going to be white like this individual's armour. So with that all done, it's time to add some shades. The first of these is going to be some Tyran Blue. We're going to apply this over top of all the areas that are going to be white. So this is mostly going to include her armour, but also we're going to apply this over top of the Death Star. With that all done, we're then going to take some Nuln Oil. I'm going to use this to shade all the silver and all the black. And with that Nuln Oil all applied, we then take some Reikland Fleshshade. We apply this over top of all the gold. So with those shades all applied, the advisors, or the Wardens of Ultramar, are now what I would call a Warhipster battle ready. But of course we're not going to leave them there, no. We're going to take them to the next level. I'm going to do this by adding some highlights and a layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some highlights, and none of these should be really surprising given as we've done the Space Marines with the exact same highlights. But the first one is going to be some thinned down Cygor Blue. I'm going to use this to highlight all of the blue. So with all that Cygor Blue applied, we then take some thinned down Fenrisian Grey, and we use this to add some little spot highlights to that blue. With that Fenrisian Grey all applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Grey Seer. I'm going to use this to highlight our Astropath's robes and the Gryph-Charger Grey areas across the rest of the models. So with that all done, we're now going to do our relayer of some thinned down Corax White. And there's one thing we need to correct here on this individual, because the inside of his cloak is in fact white. So we're going to be applying this Corax White over the top of the inside of the cloak in here. And this might take 2 thin coats because of that skeleton horde base, but that's okay if it does. However, the other thing we're going to do with the Corax White is going to relayer the white armor of the other individual, and we're going to use this to highlight the helmet plume. So with that Corax White applied, we've also applied it over the top of the Death Star looking thing. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take some thinned down white scar. We're going to use this to add some little spot highlights to all of the white. So next up, we take some thinned down pink horror, and we use this to highlight the little wax seals. And so with that all done, we're then going to take some thinned down squig orange. I'm going to use this to highlight all the flesh tearers red bits. And then next up we take some thinned down Evil Sun Scarlet, and we use this to highlight the red cloaks. And with that Evil Sun Scarlet all applied, we then take some thinned down Fire Dragon Bright. We use this to add some little spot highlights. So next up, we take some thinned down Dawnstone, and we use this to highlight all the black details. So with that all done, we're then going to take some thinned down Tuskor fur. I'm going to use this to highlight all of the dark brown leather. So with that all done, it's now time to work on their faces. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some Black Legion. I'm going to apply this over top of all of their eyeballs. And so with that all done, we then take a teensy tiny little dot of Screaming Skull. We apply this in the corners of each of the eyeballs. Like that sort of thing. However, what we're also going to do with the Screaming Skull is use this to highlight all of our bone details and parchment and hair. So with that all done, what we're now going to do is take some thinned down Flayed One Flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight all of their faces. And with the skin all highlighted, we then take some thinned down Moot Green and use this to highlight the laurel. With that all done, we then take a roughly 2 parts Lamia medium to 1 part Frostheart mix, and we're going to apply this over the top of the glowy ball. like so. And then what we're going to do is over the base, we're also just going to apply this. So with that all done, we now take some thinned down Iron Breaker. We're going to use this to highlight all the silver. And so with that all done, we then take some thinned down Liberator Gold. We use this to highlight all of the gold. And with that all done, we're then going to take two colours, Blood Angels Red and Frostheart. I'm going to use this over the top of any gems and lenses. So we're going to use Blood Angels Red over any mechanical gems or lenses, such as the eyepiece just here. Like that. However, I'm going to use Frostheart over the top of any gems. Which is the one on the belt, just here. Like that. And so to finish off the Wardens of Ultramar, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown, just like before on the Space Marines. I'm going to use this to add some little text to the parchment. And so with those bases now complete in the same style as we always do, Sterling Mud, Black Templar, and a dry brush of Tyrant's Skull, Titus and the Wardens of Ultramar are now finished. And I really like these guys. I've had a lot of fun painting these. As you know, I'm big into painting my Ultramarines at the moment, 20 minutes a day, and these are really cool. Of course, I didn't do these in 20 minutes a day. I had to do these in about 24 hours, but there we go.
If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel and you'd like to support me further, you absolutely can do so by heading to patreon.com/warhipster, just like all of these wonderful, amazing people have done. And alternatively, you could become a YouTube channel member by clicking on the join button below, exactly like these fabulous folks have done, scrolling up on the screen before you. There are so many of you out there that it really takes my breath away, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you do, as without you I wouldn't be able to keep making these Contrast Plus videos. And if you really like this video and you want to send me a little thanks, just click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.